This Sunday is the third Sunday in the Easter season, starting with Easter Day, and then last Sunday was Thomas Sunday. This Sunday doesn't really have a name, but is kind of Peter Sunday because we're going to be reading that very intimate passage from the Gospel of John where Jesus is talking to Peter. They've just had breakfast, and he says, "Peter, do you love me?" And he says, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And he says, "Then feed my flock, tend the sheep." And that idea of having connection spreading from Christ to the disciples and then out through the world. And that idea of connection is of paramount importance to our liturgy this Sunday. In the Acts lesson that will precede the gospel, it's that very dramatic story of the conversion of Paul from Saul to Paul when he sees the blinding light and feels the presence of Jesus. And that idea of the presence of Christ that connects us together. And it kind of jolts us when we're not doing the things that are true and authentic to ourselves as the way that Christ would have us be, and being jolted back into fellowship, into discipleship, and into connection with each other. So you hear those themes of connection and presence all through the liturgy. One of the ways that we connect, of course, on Sunday morning is through our worship. And the idea of us coming together and uniting our voices and uniting our hearts in praise, and also in connection with one another in this fellowship of St. John's. And one of the new things that we're going to try this Sunday, or at least new for the congregation at St. John's, is we are going to sing the psalm together. So during Lent, we were singing antiphons as the choir would chant verses of psalms. And we're going to continue to experiment with some different ways of singing the psalms. As we've talked about, the book of Psalms and the central part of the First Testament, that's really the hymn book of the Bible. As far as we know, these poems were originally sung. They were intended to be sung. And so it's always been the tradition of the Christian church to sing the Psalms in one way or another. So during the Easter season, this Sunday, and then in the later Sundays in the season, we're going to try a congregational form of singing the psalm that's called simplified Anglican chant. So Anglican chant is the kind of chanting that the choir will do with the psalm like an evensong. And it's fairly elaborate and honestly fairly difficult to do. Simplified Anglican chant is something that came up in the 1970s, and it really is a wonderful way for people who are not going to be as familiar with things like chanting, like the choir, to be able to still do something. So you'll see the words of the psalm, and the last syllable or the last couple of syllables will be in bold. And what happens is you simply chant all of the first part of a verse on one note and then shift notes on the bold syllable or syllables. And it's a very simple tune. So every two verses will follow the same melodic pattern. So if you can remember those 8 notes, that little melody, you'll have no problem singing the psalm. And it's something for us to all try to do together so that we can all be active in our worship and be singing this psalm, this ancient Hebrew poetry. So that's a very important way of connection that we will experience beginning this Sunday. At the offertory, the choir will be singing a piece that is Benjamin Britten's Hymn to St. Peter, and it kind of leans into the narrative of the gospel and the idea of Peter sort of being the founding priest of the church, as the tradition tells us. And this is a really marvelous anthem by the 20th century composer Benjamin Britten. It uses the Gregorian plainsong melody of Tu es Petrus, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. It starts off with the organ playing that plainsong theme in very strong notes. And the choir comes in with something of that same melody in these very strong kind of plodding notes as the organ moves just a little bit around the melody. In the middle, there's a very fast scherzo dancing section that is very whimsical and light, and then a return to that first melody. But then, of course, we also have a lot of great things. At communion, the choir will be singing a setting of "Here, O my Lord, I see thee face to face," getting us back into that idea of connection, of presence. And so through the whole service, we hope that you will feel that idea of how strong Christ's presence is with us and how we can share it with each other at St. John's and then share it with the world around us through the week. So we hope that you will be here to worship with us at St. John's Cathedral.